Oh, good evening, boys. Welcome again to another episode of The Blind Pig, courtesy of BGObsession.com. For those of you watching, quick intros. We got John on the top left, Paul on the bottom left, Bob on the bottom right, Mark on the top right, and I am Derek. If you guys don't know our screen names at this point, you're probably not joining, so you probably don't care. Welcome back again. Another Wednesday episode following somehow
Glory. Yes, glory.
consecutive games that not only did Washington win, which is improbable enough, but they won 17-15. And I'm curious to see if that score has ever been finalized or had two consecutive games finished with that score. I would bet no, but I'll take it. Monday night, exercise those demons, go to Vegas, beat that squad. Team's coming off an impressive victory. I'm not going to throw out the interesting question this week because I think we've got way too much to talk about with who's on the horizon, and so we can just kind of jump into it. What did you guys see against Vegas? I've got my opinions. There were some good, there were some ugly, there was some really good, there was some really bad. But I'll open the floor.
Well, we got to start with the most obvious thing, which was we took the kickoff and marched it right down the field for a touchdown. That's crazy. You just don't see that. I want to say that's only the second time this year. I think we might have done it against Green Bay. I'm not even sure about that. I may be talking out my rear end, but and of course, in all of our minds at that point, we're like, this is like the worst omen of all time. That'll be the only points we score.
I think we went down and kicked a field goal against Tampa. I think that was the first points we had on an opening drive.
On an opening drive.
I think ultimately we were up 13-0 in that game, and I think a field goal was what started it.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
That was also our second first quarter touchdown of the season.
Yeah.
So that would be a nice trend to start.
So that's sorry, go ahead.
Well, man, but that wasn't even what I found stupidly impressive. Stupidly impressive was the fact that we started that drive with back-to-back 20-plus yard plays. One on the ground, one in the air. I mean, Gibson came out and ripped it around the right-hand corner and just kept going. And then Heinicke rolled out and hit Bates. I mean, they were, oh my gosh, it felt, dare I say it, Gibbsian. It was, I mean, it felt like one of those early dominant drives from 25-plus years ago. I just sat there in my living room and went, who are these guys?
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to see Bates starting to do something other than block. And Mark and I have commented about that, he doesn't get a lot of opportunities. I don't know how many times they threw at him. I know he had like 3 catches for like 40 some yards. So, I mean, it wasn't anything dazzling, but the kid can play.
He's going to get opportunities next week.
He's turned out to be exactly what he was advertised as. And when we talked about him in preseason, he was a guy with a big catch radius with really good hands. He catches everything that's near him, and he's a solid blocker. If he can develop NFL skills and quickness and get separation, I mean, he's certainly a legit number 2 tight end in the NFL, maybe better.
And to answer your question, John, 3 catches on 4 targets.
Okay. So the other thing that I have to jump in with is the most impressive thing to me. I was really worried about Carr ripping us to shreds because he's ripped a lot of teams to shreds through the course of the year. And I want to say maybe he was the yards leader coming into this game, but I'm not sure.
I think he
was the number 1 total yards guy, I thought.
And we limited them to 3 stinking points in the first half. And I'm not saying I wasn't still shitting a brick because I always am with this team, but that is a hell of a,
and rightfully so, because they scored it back into that game.
That's a pretty impressive way to start a game with that, facing that kind of offense.
For me personally, if there was one thing that stood out on Sunday, is that for me, Sunday was a reminder that it truly takes every single guy on your team to consistently win in the NFL. I know we've talked about this before, talking about how football is the ultimate team sport, but oh my goodness, if If we don't get contributions from literally every guy on the team, then Sunday's not becoming a win. I think back to the fourth quarter, for instance, we're up 14-12. Heinicke throws that interception, I believe, where his hand got hit. I personally thought at that point right there that was the turning point in the game, that Vegas, I should say, was going to score, and that would have been it. But
No,
right
you
at that
should
juncture,
say Oakland.
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. No
Yeah.
worries. Right at that juncture in the game, though, you saw the defense do enough to pick the offense up. They limited Vegas to a field goal at that point. We get the ball back. The offense then puts the ball in a position where we can set up for a game-winning field goal. I mean, it wasn't a perfect performance by the offense, but they did enough to get us into field goal range. Same thing for the defense. It wasn't perfect. Vegas scored, but everybody did their part to allow, in the end, a W to be put up on the board. So it was truly a fantastic team effort, and that was the biggest thing for me on Sunday.
Yeah, you know, our next kicker up, Brian Johnson, I have to look because I always want to call him Brian Wilson, but I think that's like Surfing USA. I don't know. But Brian Johnson, I mean, what a ballsy performance. I mean, yeah, he had a couple of extra points, which we expect those any kicker to make those, but to be out there with the game on the line, man, and like in that position that he's in, playing for any kind of a roster spot in Washington or somewhere else if it doesn't work out here, and to hit a 48-yarder in that kind of a moment, that is unbelievable to me. I can't imagine, man. I think I would have a bowel movement right there on national TV at that point. I could not even get to the ball because I think the stress I would feel, but I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, it was. You'd like to think when you're faced with that situation that it would actually, you're so nervous that what are you going to do? It's like when you're on the first tee at a new golf course you've never been on, and there's a bunch of people watching, and if nothing else, you're going to be focused. So he was focused and he executed it. It wasn't a pretty kick. Now it was drifting towards I know you all saw it. It was drifting right. Like, no. And then it stayed and made it. So all credit to the latest Hokie kicker.
We also won the time of possession battle, even though I was bitching about it in our BGO chat room. Mike from Ohio corrected me, and he was right. I guess we didn't dominate time of possession like we have in some of the other recent wins. It was 33, almost 34 minutes to 26 minutes. But it didn't even look that good after the first half, but we did dominate. And they actually had two drives that were 10 minutes or longer in the second half, but they only got one touchdown out of that. And we still got the better of the second half, despite those two big long drives. But
so to build off of what you just said, John, in regards to our defense, if anybody would have told you coming into this Sunday's game that we would go into Vegas, we would have 298 yards of total offense, we would score 17 points, I'm pretty sure that we all would have said, guaranteed that would be a loss. You know, we're traveling across the country. We have a short week, and I think a lot of credit needs to go to Jack Del Rio. I mean, the guy took a lot of crap early in the season, but credit to him for the level of preparedness that he instilled in this defense to go in there on Sunday. It wasn't an easy job, but you know, without that defensive performance, I don't think we walk out of there with a win.
You know, and he did that without our new not so secret weapon, right? Landon Collins playing down in the box, the guy that's just been again, another guy that took a tremendous amount of crap the beginning of the season, right? And then for the last 4 games, he's really kind of been indispensable. And frankly, I was a little worried about not having him on the field. Oddly enough, I mean, you consider the number of times I looked at the team early in the season and went, why is he on the field? And now this week, I'm worried about the fact that he's not on the field. That tells you exactly how much he's turned it around. And Del Rio managed to scheme the whole thing up and do it without the guy that's been just incredibly disruptive around the line of scrimmage. And part of how he did that was our #1 draft pick, who, by the way, got his very first tackle for a loss this week. So, 2-3 years from now, when the guy's wreaking havoc on everybody in the NFL, we can look back at this game and go, that's kind of where he looked pretty good this week, actually.
He arguably saved the game, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't there an open field tackle that the guy would have put him in field goal range had he not made it?
It was funny, early in the game, I was making notes, and we missed some open field tackles early, like really good opportunities to tackle them for loss. And Jamin had a couple of them where he came in, took a bad angle, whatever. But when I went back and looked at it again, the condensed version of the game, he made some plays that I missed. He was playing at 100 miles an hour, and he gave himself a concussion. He was playing so hard.
And I thought Holcomb, even though I don't, kind of like with Collins, I don't want to see Holcomb in pass coverage with the game on the line too much. But Holcomb, I thought, made a bunch of huge tackles, as did Kendall Fuller. And Kendall Fuller, if there's like a comeback player this season, he looked terrible to start the season. I thought he did. I thought he looked like, what happened to this guy? But he's really, you're going to miss some plays. It happens. But he and Holcomb, I thought, saved the day on defense
And
for the most part.
don't leave Bobby McCain out.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you can probably, as a unit, I think the defensive secondary has probably come the furthest of any unit on this team. And
They had the farthest to go.
Well, they did.
Based on the
you're
early
right,
part,
Mark. There's,
yeah.
There is something to be said for that. But
Yeah.
they very easily could have stayed where they were too, and we'd still be, granted, the defense, we're getting better play across the board. We're getting better play from the linebackers. We're getting more disciplined play from the defensive ends. So we're not opening up those massive holes for guys to, to run through, because everybody's just desperate to make a play. But the defensive secondary is covering better. They're playing better defense. There's better open field tackling, and they're pretty much better all the way across the board. There were at least 3 or 4 weeks there where we all griped about how we were using Jackson, wondering if Fuller had just completely fallen off a cliff somewhere, because he wasn't playing like the same guy from last year. And those two guys particularly have kind of turned it around. I'm a little excited about what the future may actually hold. The more they play like this, and the more St. Just actually, learns in this league, assuming, of course, he's got a solid career ahead of him after all the concussions, right? They IR'd him this week, so maybe he's going to get some time to recover and hopefully put that behind him, but we'll see.
So I think we need to mention Heinicke, and I want to hear what Paul has to think about this. And Heinicke did not have a statistically impressive game, but I felt like when we needed him, what we're kind of seeing from him is when we need him the most, or particularly after he makes a glaring mistake, he produces. And we outplayed them on third down. We were more efficient than them on third down, which to me was surprising. We did not miss in the red zone or in goal to go situations. We were 100% on those. And I think a lot of that has to do with Heinicke. And I love, after he made the mistake, he came right back down and let him down the field, because we've seen him do that more than once. But I'd like to hear what you guys think about what we saw from Heinicke. It wasn't perfect, but
I'm going to give, so if we're grading, I'm going to give Heinicke, and I was thinking about this week. I'm going to give Heinicke a C-, and I'll explain why. He got 90% of his questions correctly, but he only showed work on 75%. So you see what I'm saying here? So that interception at the end of the game could have cost it. It was a pick six, game over. That's it. Luckily, the defensive back dropped the ball. That's something Heinicke has done in the past that you cannot afford to do. We just got lucky. But he also made plays to win the game. The touchdown to Logan Thomas was complete. That made Logan Thomas look, he will be a highlight package now. He will be a poster now because of that catch, but it was unnecessary. He was all by himself in the back of the end zone. When Heinicke played Houdini and rolled to his left and threw to Logan Thomas, well, again, he overthrew him. It kind of took him by surprise because it was on him so quickly and it was over his head. It went through his hands, and it should have been an EV first down because he had plenty of room to set. He had plenty of room around Thomas. He did not have to force a throw. So we won
His
the
hair
game.
was on fire by the time he got free for that pass. You could see it coming. He was
100%.
so jacked, man. He just
But
boom,
but-
cut it loose.
how many times what separates the good quarterbacks from the great and the great from the elite is that when their hair is on fire, they play no differently than they do when it's sunny and 75. You know
The
what I
truly
mean?
greats, sure. Yeah.
But I think I think our bar for quarterbacks is ridiculous at this point because we haven't had one. And so we forget that, you know what, Theismann threw bad balls. Tom
Well,
Brady
everybody-
threw a horrible ball in the game that we played against them. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. And I'm not saying you're wrong. You're not wrong at all. But like I said, what I love is that it does not faze him. He just comes out. He just looks determined when he comes back out after making a bad ball like that.
Well, and that's what you want. You want a guy who doesn't care too much about the future, doesn't care too much about the past, who's not worried about scoring 14 points on one play, and he's also not thinking about the interception he just threw on the last drive. So
And he was under a lot of pressure in that game. I thought. I know he only got sacked once, but this was not like some of the previous games where he looked. He had grass stains all up and down his ass after the first quarter. I mean, he did. He took a bunch of shots, and some of that is on him. But we're not exactly healthy on the O-line across the board, and it showed.
100%. We're on our fourth center. We're on our backup right tackle. We're on our backup everything pretty much. Hobbled, hindered, and beaten. So I get that, but my overall point was it was he did enough to win the game, and that's all you can really ask for a guy when you're on the road in a hostile environment like that, and you're coming off 3 wins, going into 4. You win ugly sometimes, and that's okay. So I give him the benefit. He's continuing to prove why he should be our quarterback for minimum the remainder of the year, and our favorite to be the starting quarterback week 1 next year, regardless whether or not we draft somebody, unless we make some major offseason push.
Yeah.
If he keeps it up.
All
Correct.
of that is fair. And it's so easy to lose sight of the bigger picture where these last 4 games, he's proven that he can win in the NFL. He can help his team win games. We haven't been able to say that about our quarterbacks all that often lately, but Taylor is helping us win games. Nobody can take that away. 2, the game is not too fast for him. It's not too big for him. We've seen that a number of times with our quarterbacks over the last generation. He processes, he makes plays, he's got just ice water in his veins. His teammates love him, right? He's got all the intangibles. I'm enjoying watching the process and watching him grow and hoping that, I mean, this is 4 straight games where I've been able to say largely the same things. This is a guy who helped us win the game again. If this is his baseline, we got something. What I don't want to see is backsliding to what we saw the games before, where it didn't look like he was an NFL quarterback for a while there.
Yeah.
We got 5 games left this year against the NFC East, and we're going to see a lot. We'll know a lot more at the end of this season about him. But right now, you cannot not enjoy what you're seeing and be rooting for this kid and giving him a whole lot of credit for just getting the job done.
Yeah, I think the jury's still out, and I think the next, like you said, he's got to show he can keep it going here.
I just looked at this while we were talking. And this has been something I've been thinking about the last few weeks. It has been so long since I've watched this team play where when the offense gets the ball, I expect them to get a drive. I expect them to convert a couple of 3rd downs, to move the ball and hang on to it. In this game, our possessions were, and there were no 3 and outs, which is where I'm going with this. There were 11 plays, 7, which is only 1 first down, but then 14. End of the half was 2. Later in the second half, 8 plays, 14 plays, 9 plays. All of those are the reasons that we're winning time of possession, that we're able to run the ball. He's converting 3rd downs. If we can play that formula again, and I'm going to go back and look at the previous 3 weeks. I think I'm going to see the same. We're not getting a lot of 3 and outs.
No,
We are giving our defense a chance to sit at least for 1 series to look at the look at the Microsoft Surfaces and figure out what they're going to do on the next series.
Hey,
Bob,
hey,
you were
hey,
getting ready to
we're
talk.
not getting paid for that, man. None of that promotional stuff here.
Yeah.
You know, unless Microsoft's going to.
But we're open to it. We are open to it.
It's true, but at the moment we're
Not
so,
saying
hey,
we won't. We just
so we
aren't.
got to bleep that part out, Derek.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I did notice that I haven't seen from this team in a long time.
A Brandon Scherf holding penalty?
Oh, geez. No, false start. False start. It was false start.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry.
There was a play where Heinicke got kind of landed on and hit. And I think there were 3 O-linemen running over there to get him off the ground, dust him off, and punch the defensive end in the
Yes.
face. Like,
Yes.
they were fighting for this guy. And I remember that was one of the big things with Griffin that people noticed, is that he would get planted and the O-line would just go on about their business. And they're like, pick him out. What are you doing? You know, and it's, well, now he's writing tell-all books. So
You guys
that's
remember?
probably
I think Charles Leno was getting manly in on one of those.
yeah, and
Yeah,
he
somebody
was
say-
ready to take on the entire defensive line to
Yeah.
back up his boy. And they came and that was, we haven't seen that in a long time.
So Taylor is the anti-Jeff George. You remember that? You know
Oh,
that
yeah.
reference?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God.
For those of you out there, the 3 of you watching this who don't know what I'm talking about, Jeff George played for us back in the aughts, I guess, when we were really bad. We had a bunch of expensive guys, and Jeff George had the best arm, like the $1 billion arm and a 3-cent head. And his teammates hated him. And at one point, I think it was at Detroit, maybe, he gets knocked down, sacked, whatever. And the defensive player is dragging his ass along like 5 yards, the way I remember it. And no Redskin does anything about it. They're all just like back in the huddle. You all right, bro? You know, so.
He was like Jay Cutler with a bad attitude. It was that bad.
Wow.
Leadership is overrated, he said.
So I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Antonio Gibson leads the NFC in rushing right now.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Went past 2,000 yards, right? For his career in that
Yeah.
game.
Now, Derrick Henry's been out 4 weeks, and I think he still leads the league in rushing. So I don't think anybody's going to track him. Well, somebody's probably going to get close at this point. But the fact that Antonio Gibson, who missed time, right? Am I forgetting? Like, am I mistaken? Did he not miss at least a game?
Yeah,
No. He's
I
played
thought he
every game.
did.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he's played in every game. The only time he missed is when
He
Ron
fumbled the
set his
ball and
ass
they
on
put
the
him on the
bench after
shelf.
fumbling the ball.
So he got a timeout. He was
Yeah.
put in timeout for a little.
For some reason, I thought he had missed a game. But anyway, that's still
I
the
thought
point
he
being,
did too, Derek. I'll look it up.
The point being that he's leading the league in or the NFC in rushing. Like I think he's tied for first, right?
So we ran it 30 times in that game. 23 of those rushes were Antonio Gibson, and he averaged like 3.8 yards per carry. And I think it was probably more like 5 yards a carry in the first half, and then they started stacking the box and shutting them down a little bit. But I love that we're continuing to run. And I think it's hilarious, man. In chat, people are freaking out because they're like, it's 3rd and short and we're running. What the hell are we doing? They, where 6 weeks ago it was, why are we
running the ball?
Dropping Taylor back in an empty backfield. So I love that. I don't know if it's some eureka moment for Scott Turner. I think he's probably smarter than we give him credit for, but I do think that the fact that we're just pounding the ball, whether or not we break it or we're getting shut down, we're continuing to run, and it's paying a lot of dividends. And I think Rivera mentioned that today. Somebody asked him like, what's the difference, between the first half of the season and the second half? And he kind of talked about the fact that we're getting third and manageable. We're not like we're getting meaningful yards on first and second down. And so then that's why our third down efficiency is so much better in the last 4 or 5 games. It's manageable. We're not looking at 3rd and 12 and 3rd and 15 every time. And we're converting a lot of those. And Heinicke is really good in those 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 5 situations for a lot of reasons.
Heinicke, I started to say this when we were talking about Heinicke, but I guess it fits better with the run game, sort of. And that's this week in particular, I noticed Taylor's been working on his play fake, right? The play action. He looks really good doing the play action. But the fact that you just know Gibson's going somewhere, that if you're not paying attention to Gibson, he's going to get yards on you, is making the defense play honest. And so Taylor working on that play action and Gibson making the yards when he has the ball has suddenly created all this space when they go to that play action pass. And I kind of wish they do it a little more. The plays that Taylor was having problems with guys in his face, we weren't doing that play action thing. But every time he faked that handoff and then looked to throw the ball, he had plenty of time and he was making great connections. That first play to Bates, I said something about. He play faked that to Gibson and then rolled out to the left. And here's Bates all by himself, and Taylor is all by himself. He could still be standing in that spot right now without anybody around him and throw the ball. I mean, that's how open he was. So
I wish they would roll him more like they did Joey T back in the day, because he's got that dual threat. I mean, he's not he's not Kyler Murray, but he's got that dual threat where they have to respect that he'll take off with it. They just don't do it very often. Good things usually happen, but we don't seem to.
And he seems to have a pretty good head on his shoulders. He doesn't gun it back across the field into traffic. He generally makes good decisions. The one that could have been a pick six in this game was not a good decision. He was sort of caught in no man's land, right? He was just outside the tackle box, and all of a sudden somebody flashed and he kind of threw it off his back foot, which I still think is his biggest mechanical issue. And I just don't think he saw it. I think it was just one of those quick, early young quarterback brain lock moments. He got away with it.
I think he can run more. I don't know if it's his internal thing. Like, I want to prove I can be a pocket passer and not just use my feet. But I know there were 3 or 4 times where I'm like, just run. I can see the lane on TV, for God's sake. And sometimes it worked out and sometimes it didn't. But I hope he doesn't lose that part of it, because I think that makes him, that's another dimension to him.
Yeah, it's the new NFL, man. That used to be a gimmick, right? It's not now. You win that way nowadays.
Now it's a weapon.
Yeah, guys who can extend plays and get those free first downs for you.
So I thought it was hilarious on social media that now you're seeing, well, you saw Chris, one of our BGO members, posted a thread. Do we extend Heinicke? Do we sign him to a new big deal? There's a big, and I did, it wasn't just on our site that I saw that on social media. So it's kind of like there's something going on now. It's like, well, maybe he could be something where, and I don't think anyone's really 100% sure. Even I, being, on his jock as I am, admittedly, even I'm not 100% sure, but it's interesting that conversation's starting to show up.
Well, I think that stems from the understanding of the value of an inexpensive quarterback, that Heinicke's stock is going up. And usually quarterback stocks at this stage in their career don't just go down, they continue to go up. So, and I've likened this, somebody on the board actually said this isn't a Kirk Cousins situation. And I said it very quickly could become one. And what I meant by that was, if we start jerking him around and we go into this offseason and say, well, you're still under contract and we're only going to pay you the $2 million that you're under contract for.
We'll let you compete. We're going to let you compete. That kind of language.
His agent and him could very quickly say, his agent could come to him and say, okay, make your $2.5 million this year, ball out, and I will make you 30 next year. Because it is feasible that the cap is going to go up to $208 million, which is a $30 million jump from this year, which means we could pay him $20 million, still gain $10 million in cap room. And we're not the only team that could do that. There's going to be some desperate teams out there. So I think, in my opinion, I said 3 years, $35 million. I would put it on the table today and see what he says.
So what about you, Paul? What do you think? Is Heinicke, should we try to lock him up now, or?
So here's the thing that I'm thinking in regards to Heinicke. I love the direction that he's going with this football team. I love his progress over his first 13 starts in the league. But what I want to emphasize is that these next 5 weeks are going to be very, very telling for him. What I want in my quarterback is I want a guy that is going to repeatedly be, year in and year out, a thorn in the side of my division rivals. When you think back to the past, to some of the guys that we've had to play, some of those players that have just constantly caused us fits, whether it be Emmitt Smith, whether it be Michael Irvin, whomever. I want players on my team that are going to make life miserable for my division foes. Taylor Heinicke has one start, I believe, in his career thus far against division teams, and that was against New York early in the year. I want to see what he's going to do in arguably the biggest game of his life against Dallas this week, or in another 2 weeks when we play Dallas again. He has to prove that he can play in the division, because the fact of the matter is, your division play ultimately determines whether you're qualifying for the playoffs or not. And that is definitely going to be the case for our team this year. Our division record is going to determine whether we're in or out. And I want to see a guy, again, week in and week out, when you're asked to play a division rival, that you can produce. Your division games are your most important. And I think there's a lot yet to be determined in that regard with Taylor Heinicke.
I'm right with you on that, Paul. That was my take on him too. I like the conversation about getting him under contract if we can, if we decide he's the guy. But I think that conversation happens after this season is over. I still need to see how the season plays out and how he plays out the rest of the year. He's going to put us in a tough spot if he balls out the rest of this year, whether we make the playoffs or not. If he's balling out and looking like a starting quarterback, the onus is going to be on the team to make a decision, a really hard decision. They're going to have to pay him a fair amount of money because his agent's going to say the same thing. No, that's a nice offer, thank you, but we're gonna maybe test the market next year. We think we can probably do better. They're going to be in a tough spot. So I think I wrote this on the board. Talk to me at the end of the year, and we'll know what the team is looking at and what his resume looks like.
And the fact of the matter is, if he takes us to the playoffs this year, he 100% deserves to be rewarded for that. When was the last time that this team has made the playoffs 2 years in a row? Right?
I believe that was back in the late 80s.
So that would be an achievement in and of itself.
So
Absolutely.
I just looked his contract up. Does anybody know what he's making?
He's making chump change, man.
Well, I
He's
know
making
that,
like
but
NFL
I mean,
Burger King money.
but so
We got like $4 million over 2 years, right?
he signed a $4.7 million deal over 2 years that has $4 million in additional incentives.
Right.
He got 1.5 guaranteed. And that's his signing bonus plus 500,000 in 2021 salary. And I mean, oh my gosh, the guy's like not making any money at all. I mean, his base salary for 2021 is $1 million. His base salary for 2022 is $1.5 million. Show me a team in the NFL that's got 6 victories out of a quarterback
that's not on a rookie deal.
That's not, well, even the guys on rookie deals are making better money than this, Derek.
Hey,
Well,
he's made $500,000 in the last 4 games
Winning.
on incentives.
And that's the that's the 4 million in incentives, right? That's he's
Right.
got the potential to make 4 million at 60% of the snaps plus a win equals $125,000 for the game.
So I posted this on the board. If they don't just up and give him $5 million at the end of this season, just as like a Christmas present, that it's just wrong. Like the players should donate that shit. The guy, I mean,
I'd like to
he's
work for
playing
you, John.
I'm telling you.
he's playing. He's an undrafted free agent, but he's a viable starter at least this year. You cannot deny it. So if they don't give him some kind of a
Doesn't that run afoul of salary cap rules? I don't think they can quite do that. I like the sentiment.
Why can't
well,
they?
they can project it into the next contract if they want to.
They
but
can,
I mean, the guy
they
needs
can
to be
restructure a deal. How many
Oh,
guys restructured to bring
right.
their
They
money
can't
down?
just give them a Christmas bonus, which is what I heard just saying.
Oh, would that? But you could sign it. You could probably sign him to, if you wanted to do it, you could sign him for next year, but you could roll the money into a signing bonus.
Absolutely.
Make next year voidable, the same way a lot of guys did it during the cap season when the cap number went down. But where you don't have the long-term guy on the team yet. It'd be one thing if we drafted a quarterback and the long-term guy was there and you look at him and say, look, Taylor, we get it. We love you, but we have our guy on the roster. At best, you're drafting a guy next year or trading a big buttload of money for a veteran. And I don't know that you're going to pay a lot more money. So you have less team around that veteran. So unless you're getting an MVP, it's not worth it. So I would almost say I'm with John, where it's hand him some more money now for next season so that if you don't get your guy, you don't sour your relationship. Because if I'm him and I go into this offseason and you don't commit to me, why do I want to commit to you in the offseason of 22? Unless you make it legitimate.
I think he's very grateful to this organization because he was on his way to never playing another NFL down, and we gave him that chance. So I do think I don't think he's like a Kirk Cousins in that way. And I'm not bashing Cousins. I'm just saying you always knew Cousins had a burr in his craw or whatever.
As soon as we turned down that first offer he made us, he was gone. We weren't going to.
And we may have blown that in some regards, but I think Heinicke is grateful. And I think we need to mass produce a t-shirt that says, "Get Taylor off his sister's couch." We give the guy a salary where he can get his own place.
Hey, look, we could
not eat microwave burritos every day.
We could put a couch right there, right on the. But my point wasn't that he's like Cousins. My point was the guy's earned a payday. You don't have your long-term answer on the team.
Well, has he though? We're talking about 4 games. Four games ago, we would not be having this.
We're not talking about just 4
We're
games.
not just talking about 4 games. We're talking about your starting quarterback. Starting quarterbacks don't make $1 million.
Are you prepared to say he is our starting quarterback in 2022 and beyond?
Yes. Not beyond.
I want to
22.
see the rest of this season. I think this is the right conversation. I don't think we're ready to have the conversation yet.
Unless here's the thing, Mark, unless he is the cause that we don't make the playoffs. I'm not saying that he doesn't carry us to the playoffs. I'm saying he is outright the reason we didn't make the playoffs.
No,
right? The
playoffs to me,
2 or 3 games.
The playoffs to me are almost irrelevant for this question. I want to see how he plays. I want to see how he plays.
What you're saying, but what I'm saying is if we keep seeing the same level of play from him,
then yes.
I don't want to say we're going to make the playoffs, but I think there's a relatively decent chance that we make the playoffs. If he continues to play the way he's played the last 4 games and the defense doesn't revert to, the New Orleans game and play that way against Dallas, I see this team making the playoffs. And so my comment is really, if Taylor doesn't come out and shit the bed in 2 or 3 games and this team falls short, I think you've got to do something at the end of the season. Now, I don't want to go absolutely crazy. The guy's not the second coming of Joe Montana. He doesn't deserve. No, he's never going to be there.
He's not a lefty. Or no, that was wrong. My bad.
Nice. But
I think,
somebody said it a second ago and it kind of got glossed over. Taylor is never going to be the marquee quarterback that demands what did they say Monday night last week? Russell Wilson was making $30 million a season, $40 million a season. He's what, one quarter, 1/5 of the Seahawks salary cap right now. That's never going to be Taylor Heinicke. That's not what he's going to demand. That's not what his play is going to demand. This is a guy that we could conceivably win with at $10 million a year, $12 million a year.
Well, that's where his value
I'm not
lies.
saying this offseason, Mark. I'm not saying you throw that money at him this offseason.
No, I don't think that money signs a starting quarterback. That's not a starting quarterback salary. What's the lowest NFL salary for a starting quarterback who's, you know what I mean? I think the average
The average salary is the starting, is where you are looking to put him.
And
I
that's
think
that
you
is around
start-
13 million.
Yeah, all right, and listen, if he plays at the level he's played for the last 4 weeks, for the next 5 weeks, give or take, there's gonna be better games than not. Yes, I said this right at the beginning, the team is gonna have to make something happen if they're gonna keep him around. Because
So-
he will have gotten attention and he will have earned the right to have that conversation with the team.
All right,
So I
so
want to bridge the.
We
I wanna
signed
bridge
Ryan
the divide.
Fitzpatrick to be the
Go ahead,
starter
Paul.
for 10.5.
Yeah. Based on a 30-year career or whatever the heck he had.
Yeah, but here's the other thing you
that's-
have to consider when you're saying that. We signed Fitzpatrick to 10.5 in a season where the cap went down. The cap is going to go up 30 million this offseason. So the cap is going up almost 20%, which means the salaries are going to go up 20%. So every agent that's worth a snuff is going to go, especially a guy like Heinicke, who has shown upside, who is not a lot of miles, who's playing the most important position in sports, who has shown the ability to win football games. This is not a situation where he's flashed enough to make you say, I wonder. He has won games. This is not Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah,
So there are going to be
So
teams
I'm gonna
that will pay him.
interject because I insist on interjecting. The number doesn't matter. I mean, stop talking about the number. The market determines
It's the
number.
percentage of your
He's
cap.
gonna, if they decide to sign him for, say, like a 3-year deal, they're gonna sign him at the average quarterback NFL salary, whatever that is, going into next year. They are, because he's not stupid. Why would if he's a starting NFL quarterback, if the team deems him that, which they would, since they're signing him to a 3-year deal, they're going to pay him at least the average NFL salary. That's what they're going to try to pay him. And whether or not the numbers seem insane or not, it really doesn't matter. But I do think we can bridge this divide, which is that Mark is 100% correct. If he shits the bed over the next 5 games, or even if he just plays badly enough that we don't win, like he throws a couple of picks, he throws a pick and fumbles it every game, or whatever it is, or he throws less than 60% completions. He just looks like bad Taylor, right? Then we decide, or the team decides we can't take a flyer on a guy that's an undrafted free agent that hasn't done it for a whole season. If he keeps doing what he's done over the last 4 or 5 weeks, then all bets are off. And maybe we've got our quarterback, and maybe the big thing that we're not talking about is what we have to do if we don't have a quarterback, because then you're talking about giving up major draft picks to find a quarterback, whether it's Russell Wilson or draft, we're moving up in the draft. And there's a whole other downside to that conversation. And by the way, we suck at finding great quarterbacks.
So let's wrap this up. Let's wrap this all up in a bow. The only difference that I've heard in my position and yours, Derek, and yours, John, is I want 5 more games. Other than that, we're on the exact same page.
I'm not saying I don't want 5 more games, because you're right. He could play himself out of the job between now and the end of the season. Yeah. But my point is that you have to weigh that. Is his value going to just get better over the next 5 weeks? And are you confident that what you have seen? And look, I'm going to be blatantly honest with you. This past game isn't enough for me to want to sign him. We scored 17 freaking points. Okay. It's not like we won 37-15. We won 17-15. And if it wasn't for the defense standing on their head for another game, that game was not won by some offensive explosion. Okay. We beat Tampa by offense. We did not beat Seattle. We beat Carolina, you could argue, by offense. He might have been the best quarterback on the field. Not only on the field, he might have been one of the best quarterbacks to play that day against Carolina. He was fantastic. But this past game, we already talked about it. He gets his hair on fire. The ball comes out high. He makes bad throws. He throws off his back foot. But you're right. My point was, if the team is going to commit, they need to commit. We can't drag him into next season on the current contract and act like that's acceptable business because all you're going to do is turn his agent off. Even if he wants to be here, his agent is going to say, okay, you can play there for $9 million, or you can go to Houston or somewhere else and get 4 times that over the course of the contract.
Taylor would be like, no, not Houston.
My
Anything
dearly
but that.
dearly departed mother had this really quaint expression that I heard a lot in my youth, and it was shit or get off the pot. So I think that's what's going to happen in Washington is you're right. They have to decide, is he or is he? Is you or is you not my constituency? That's what they need to decide. Is he the man or is he not?
Yep.
And I hope he just keeps doing what he's doing, man.
So I'm making a note. Do podcast in 5 weeks about Heinicke contract
That,
situation.
we're going to have one. We will probably have to have one this offseason about Heinicke.
We absolutely are, but something to think about between here and there. You guys kind of laughed at me a minute ago when I threw out that $10 million number. There aren't that many guys making more than $10 million a year this year. Dak Prescott's the 10th highest paid quarterback in the NFL at 17.2.
But
Right
hold on
after
a
him
sec,
is
Bob.
Deshaun Watson at 15.9. After
No,
that
that's-
is Ryan Tannehill at 11.1.
Do you know
Right?
why that is?
Those aren't
cap
annual
went-
numbers.
the
Those
cap
are cap
went
numbers.
down.
Yeah.
Go.
I
Look at
understand.
22. You know what Matt
also-
Ryan is making in 22? Matt Ryan,
Yeah. Do you know
Well,
how
it's
much?
the back end of his career, of his
$38
contract.
million.
But I think Bob makes a good point, which is if you offer Taylor Heinicke $10 million a year, I don't know if he's turning that down.
I don't
really
either. I said on the board 3 years, $35 million.
Like Kirk Cousins, right? It's never going to be better than it is right now. And I think that was a point you made, Derek, over and over. Is that like, the longer we wait, when he proves he is the next Joe Montana, well, then we're in trouble because he's not going to want to be in DC.
Well, and this at this point gets made all the time too. It does take 2 sides to tango. We assume Taylor would be so grateful with a $10 million offer, right? And his agent may say, dude, if they're offering you 10, I can get you 30 somewhere else. So
Well, but
it's going to
all
take
right,
both sides.
all right. Speaking as a guy that's intimately plugged into the job world at the moment, there aren't that many other starting quarterback jobs in the NFL. There are 32. And on any given Sunday, there are 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. That is it. Taylor is going to want to start. Do you take 10 to stay in Washington and start, or do you take 15 to go somewhere else where you may not start?
Nobody's signing him to 15 unless he's starting.
I think he wants to start.
Look
I'll
at what
just say
Taysom
that.
yeah.
Hill.
Of course he
Right,
wants to
but
start.
but my point, Derek, is all these other teams are paying somebody else. I mean, so you said Ryan's making 48 million next year, and I went, great. Let me see what everybody else is making next year.
Mhm.
Now we got to drop down to like number 20, give or take, before we get down to that $10 million range. Now we're
Right.
talking about Nick Foles on the Bears and Ben Roethlisberger on the Steelers.
Who's going to retire?
But I'm looking at all the names above that, and these are guys that are all currently penciled in as starters. So who's going to throw him 15 million to come someplace else? You've got to get down into the Jets at 7 million to find somebody where 15 million makes you a starting quarterback.
Yeah,
So
but they
the
got
only
Zach
way,
Wilson.
the only way anyone else is throwing him money like that is if he does what Mark says. The next 5 games, he like shows that he can carry us. He plays great. He carries us into the playoffs. That's the only scenario under which other teams are going to like throw big money at him. So we're going to be the ones that have the opportunity to throw that money at him. And I hope we do.
Sorry, I don't need to keep perpetuating this, but look at how many new starting quarterbacks there were and wearing new uniforms over the last 18 months. Cam Newton, okay? Carolina would have killed to have Taylor Heinicke on that team instead of Sam Darnold. Look at Denver playing Teddy
except for the fact
Bridgewater.
that now, Derek, except for the fact that when they traded for Darnold, they didn't want Heinicke, they wanted Darnold.
He's
But
talking
that's
about
my
now.
point.
He's talking
I'm
about
talking
knowing
about
what we
now.
know now.
Right. But I mean, that's the point. What's
Right.
we have him under contract for 2023. We don't have
22.
2022 rather. We
Yeah.
don't have to do anything. We're
We-
talking about doing this because it's the right thing to do for a guy that has way outplayed his
Well,
contract.
no, I'm
this year,
talking
right?
about doing it
Mm.
because if you don't do it, chances
Yeah.
are you kiss him goodbye after 22 and you've lost your shot.
I think that's the whole point. We've moved past, we've got him under contract for 2023. Now it's, if he's who he's starting to look like he might be, we have to lock him up. And I know it's not, I agree with Mark. It's not known yet. It's still a question. But at the moment they decide that, you know what, this guy can win, we can win with this kid.
Lock him
He's-
up, pay him good money, and build around it. And you know
Hell,
you have your
for all
plan.
we know, they may have decided that already in the coaching room. They may already know this is their guy,
They may.
but they're
And
not
we-
going to, but at the end of the year, they'll have the conversation and we'll pod about that too.
They're in the back room going, fucking Heinicke.
Of course they
You know
are.
they are.
You know,
Like,
one thing that we haven't thrown out here that I feel like we really ought to mention, and that's the concept that we see guys move around all the time and don't have the same level of success at the next team that they had at the current team, because the current guy
Yes.
understands him, knows how to work with him, right? I mean, what was wrong with William Jackson the beginning of the season in our defense? Were we playing him right? Did Jackson suddenly stop being a baller? Or did Jack Del Rio not completely understand what he had on his hands and play the guy incorrectly? And it's taken the coaching staff 8 games to figure out how to line the guy up. Taylor Heinicke has, we talk about the confidence the coaching staff has in Heinicke at the moment. It goes the other way too. Heinicke has a tremendous amount of confidence right now in Scott Turner.
Yes.
And
That's
and
an
he's
there's
a
a
awesome
quarterback
point,
coach.
Paul.
If
I mean,
there's
that's
a
an awesome point,
quarterback,
Bob.
if there's a quarterback that will take a hometown discount, it's probably a guy like Heinicke.
Yep.
And that's not lost on me. So he might sign here for 11, where he wouldn't sign anywhere else for less than 16 or 17, because that's what starting quarterbacks are going to get. He might not play that hardball as much here, and I understand that, but the value is just going to continue to grow.
Yeah. And
That's a great point.
To be clear, the guys that are below the point that I threw out a second ago are, for the most part, on their rookie deal. The starters are on their rookie deal, right? Joe Burrow is going to be just under 10 million next year. Daniel Jones is still on his rookie deal. He's going to be under 9. Trevor Lawrence is going to be under 9. Tua is going to be under 9. Those are all guys on their rookie deal. And Taylor's not that anymore. And you've got to consider that he's 28. He doesn't have a decade more than likely ahead of him. He's going to have to figure out how to make his money now. So that could be a sticking point, not to play devil's advocate to myself, but that's what I do.
So I started us down this Heinicke tangent. Thanks, John. Which I thought that was a great conversation. I really did. So
If only we had a game coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
So let's
If
talk about
only
that.
we had an opponent that we hated this week.
It could we get a little juicier setup on Sunday.
Yeah,
Please.
it's really sad.
I hate those stinking guys coming in here. I'm just saying this one would be as sweet as any we've had in a while, because this one sort of really means something. Probably the last one I can, off the top of my head, Dallas game here that would mean this much was for the NFC Championship in RG3's year. that final game of the year, I guess, where we get the interception on Romo to seal the game at the end.
That was an amazing game.
That feeling is what now half the stadium is, if or more, is going to be Dallas fans on Sunday still. But that feeling, I'm actually got a little bit of that. It's been a long time since I felt that on a Dallas game. And here we're 6-6. There's a playoff implication. Dallas is no excuses. They've got their playmakers back. We are missing all kinds of people. So right, the story is set up for them to come in and run away and bury us by 20 or 30. The chance to beat them in this one, this is big. I'm feeling it.
I think you have to throw records out the window. If you want to sit there and scour the rosters and say who's got the edge talent wise, I think you have to throw that out the window as well. When these two teams play, it ultimately comes down to sheer will. It comes down to desire. It comes down to hunger. It comes down to physicality. And the team that does better in those regards on Sunday, I think, is ultimately going to be victorious. You have to want it. Like when it's a Washington-Dallas game, you have to want it. Who wants it more? I think that's going to be very, very telling in determining the final outcome of what we see transpire on Sunday.
When we beat Dallas, it's generally because the line of scrimmage on both sides, we control it. We generally don't control the line of scrimmage against Dallas historically over all these years. All those painful losses with quarterbacks have been running for their lives and we can't run the ball. We've won 4 consecutive close games because we've been really competitive at the line of scrimmage. We can do that against Dallas again this week. Same thing. It'll another close game, and I think we've got as good a chance to win as they do.
So this is a great offense we're playing. And I don't like saying that because it's Dallas, but they're number 1 in the league in yards, almost 5,000 yards so far. Number 2 ranked in points. They are 4th in the passing offense in yards, and a woeful 6 in rushing yards. I mean, this is a legit offense. On the defensive side, they're pretty shaky against the pass. So it kind of plays to our, I don't want to say weaknesses because I don't think we have a weak passing game and it's coming on, but our rushing offense is the strength of our offense, and their rushing defense is much better than their passing defense. So I don't know. I don't know that it plays to our strength necessarily. But I almost wonder if I just have a belief that they think they're going to win this game. They think they've already won it because they're Dallas and we're Washington, and we've won. Okay, we won 4 in a row, but we've got Taylor Heinicke at quarterback, and we're just not very good. We don't really have a team name, and they're Dallas. That's kind of been the way that they are, just mentality-wise, and so I'm not writing it off. I just think our defense is going to have to rise up at a time where we don't have our supposedly top tier players. We're going to have to really have like Paul is fond of saying, we're going to have a complementary game where every single unit on the team exceeds expectations to beat them, because they are I mean, they have lost games. I looked it up. They've lost 3 of their last 5. So that's the good news. They started out like,
that was the point I was
all
going to
out of
make.
hell.
They started 6-1.
They've lost 3 of their last 5. They lost at home against Denver. They lost on the road against KC, and they lost at home against the Raiders in overtime. So they're not exactly a total juggernaut coming into this game. So I think there's a chance, but we're going to have to contend with the 2-headed monster and Elliott, who I think is going to play. He's been dinged up, but I think he practiced today. And Pollard, both of them they're almost equal. Elliott has a few more touchdowns, but they
Pollard
both
did not practice today.
Pollard did not.
Pollard did not. Yeah, no. Elliott had full practice today. Pollard was DNP.
I'd rather face more Elliott than Pollard at this point.
Yeah,
Elliott's slowed
Elliott's-
by that knee.
And Elliott seems to be facing a bit of a crisis of confidence. He just doesn't he doesn't have any confidence in his body, quite frankly. And whereas Tony Pollard, on the other hand, is a scary MF, man. The dude just puts a shoulder down and goes.
Yep.
And anytime he touches the ball, you could be looking at his jersey as he's running past you.
Well, the bad news is the rushing attack is the least of our worries. That's the bad news.
No, what scares me about these guys, it's 3 guys. It's Dak running around throwing to CeeDee Lamb and to Amari Cooper, who are both, I mean, Amari Cooper is their version of Terry McLaurin. He's just smooth and he makes plays. And CeeDee Lamb you don't even know how good he is yet. I think Dak goes downfield on a regular basis to those guys and is looking for PI calls and looking for big plays. That's the key to the game if we can control that.
And they've got Cedric Wilson, who's having almost as good a season as Cooper is. He's a couple hundred yards short of him as far as yards, but he's catching almost 70% of the balls thrown to him. Dalton Schultz, who I want to say he's the backup tight end. I'm trying to think of their starting tight end, but I think he might have gotten hurt.
Schultz.
Schultz is
but
the guy that's playing the majority of the snaps now.
Yeah, he's had almost 600 yards of receptions and 4 touchdowns. So I mean, they have a lot of receiving weapons. And even though we like to mock Dak, when Dak is on, he's pretty impressive. So it is not I just don't want to underestimate the Dallas offense because they're pretty good. They're obviously the best in the league. I don't think anyone can challenge that.
This is going to sound bad. Dallas's offense might be the most talented offense in the league, but Dallas is going to Dallas. You know what I mean? You know how we say Redskins going to Redskins? Dallas is going to Dallas. And I think they've done that. Now, statistically, they made some hay against some pretty bad teams early in the season. They opened up with a loss against Tampa, and then they eked out a win against the Chargers, but then it went Philly, Carolina, New York Giants, New England, who was not playing anywhere near the level they're playing at now. Bye week, Minnesota, who is Jekyll and Hyde, Denver, who just throttled them, Atlanta, who might be one of the worst teams in the league at the moment, the Chiefs, who arguably have one of the worst defenses in the league, and they lost 19-9, and then Vegas, who we just beat. They gave up 33, and then they beat New Orleans with Taysom Hill and the 5 of us playing offensive line there. So I think I don't think it can be overstated the level of competition. Dallas went through the softest part of their schedule while we were going through the hardest part. Now,
And I go right back to what we've said pretty much for the last 4 weeks. The best defense this week is Antonio Gibson.
yes.
If Dak can't hurt you if he's sitting on the bench. Neither can CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper.
So I'm saying that the formula, right? Convert third downs and keep them off the field. I'm with you.
And the trick to that, I think, is going to be figuring out where Micah Parsons is pre-snap every single time, and either making sure that Brandon Scherf is sitting on him or we're running away from him.
And
that guy's a beast.
The other thing to think about,
out of the front 7, he's the leading tackler. He's also the leading sacker. Nobody else on the team has more than 1.5 sacks. Parsons has 10.
Yeah, he's
the other thing to think about is McLaurin last year had Diggs's number. And it wasn't even fair.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at matchups, and just to circle back to the offense, and you guys mentioned the formula, is this offense that much better than Tampa?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Talent wise, I mean, you're talking Mike Evans, Godwin, the greatest quarterback of all time. Now, they didn't have Gronkowski, but
they also didn't have Antonio Brown. I mean,
they didn't have Brown, but neither does Dallas.
2 big pieces, but and arguably you could say that Brady had an off day, but I think Brady had an off day because
we made him have an off day.
Yeah, we hurt him early. We hit him early, and then he started looking around. And I think, frankly, if we could do the same thing to Dak, Jonathan Allen lands on you a couple of times, you start paying attention to what's going on right in front of you instead of what's going on downfield.
So I think there's 2 keys to this game, because I think we always make Dallas, even despite what I said, ramping up their offense because they are good. And I don't want to be a homer in this game. They have a really good offense, but we generally play them tough. I don't know who said it, but it's true. NFC East contests are closer than they should be always, no matter who.
Thanksgiving,
no matter who we're talking about. I think that the defense, we've got to win the turnover battle. We've got to force some turnovers, and then I think it could come down to special teams. So I have total confidence in our man Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys against Greg Zorline, who's missed 3 of 5 from 50 and a couple extra points already. He doesn't have a strong leg anymore, and so I feel like we got to have something extra at home against Dallas in this first game, especially because we're on a 4-game winning stretch, and it's really just blindly looking at it statistically. It's really tough to win 5 in a row. So I feel like we've either got to have turnovers, some key turnovers, or our special teams have to do something special, either outkick the other team's kicker, or maybe finally Carter takes one to the house. And I think we've seen that is definitely, he could also fumble it on the 10-yard line, but if he could take
Right.
one to the house or we get some turnovers, I think that could make a big difference.
That's that would be Brian Johnson of AC/DC, not Wilson of the Beach Boys, but it's okay.
Okay. All right.
Throw
Wouldn't
a
it be
different
nice?
name at you.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah. Oh. As opposed to Highway to Hell.
That's true. Which, by the way, that was my prom theme. That was voted to be my prom theme. But
Highway to
instead,
Hell.
that's what we nominated. But instead, we got Kenny Loggins' "This Is It," because even in the '80s, there was political correctness.
Well, I was gonna say I guarantee that doesn't happen after 2000. Highway to Hell being your prom theme.
True story.
All right, so I guess
Wow.
we should try to make some predictions here. I think
Do we have, before we do that, and I didn't get a chance to look today. Are we expecting McKissick to play?
Yeah, great question. I was just about to go look.
I believe, and I didn't see anything definitive, but the gist was Collins, McKissick, and Seals Jones were all at practice today.
And we
So,
might have had Montez Sweat if he was, well, never mind.
So Curtis Samuel, I just want to throw this out there. I was very disappointed. I know they're limiting his reps, which is I get that because the last time we didn't limit his reps, he got re-injured, but he did nothing in that last game. And I felt like we need somebody other than DeAndre Carter and
De'Ami
Humphreys to
Johnny
challenge.
Brown had a nice play, by the way. We
He
didn't.
did.
Yeah.
I
did.
feel like Curtis Samuel, he's got to show us something soon. He really does. And this would be a great game to do it.
Like to see him get some targets. I mean, I don't know, like we always talk about this. We don't know if they're calling his number and he's not getting open, or they're just not calling his number, because he has not really been part of the offense. He's been more of a decoy than anything else.
In fairness, if the Raiders cornerback, and I forget which one it was, doesn't make a brilliant play, Samuels probably scores on that screen pass early in the game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was
I
a
mean,
lame there.
Literally,
boy.
the guy made like a shoestring tackle.
He went through Scherf, didn't he? Was it? I believe the DB went through Scherf and made that tackle.
He made a great play.
I don't know that I would say through Scherf. In fact, I felt like Scherf actually made a pretty good block.
Okay,
and
he went under
the
Scherf.
defender just did an amazing job, right? A superhuman job. So I'm staring at today's injury report. Collins, Davis, and Schweitzer did not practice. Limited practice. Jonathan Allen, Jordan, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name, Tyler Larson, Curtis Samuel, Brandon Scherf, and Seals Jones.
They were
I have
all
to-
what?
They were all limited practice.
Limited, yeah.
I have to share this about Brandon Scherf. I ran into this on The Athletic today because I've been kind of down on the guy too. So I'll just throw this out and let you guys decide if it means anything. Scherf, as we know, has missed 22 of a possible 76 games since he got here in 2017. However, when he doesn't play, Washington loses. The team's record this year with him is 6-2. Without him is 0-4. Since 2018, Washington is 21-19 with him versus 2-18 without.
Well, I would be curious. I'd be curious to see which games of Scherf missed, though, because I think
All the ones
has-
that we lost.
Well, yes, I understand that, but the point being is like there's got to be context with that
Oh,
because
absolutely. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just
because
throwing it
there-
out
there-
there.
we
Derek-
lost-
Derek
we
wants to
lost
know, is
2
that
or
a
3 games
statistic?
early this year that had nothing to do with the offense.
So Derek wants to know, is that a statistic, a lie, or a damn lie?
Yeah.
I look, I'm not going to pack any punches. I buy Brandon. I'm not paying you double digits next year. Sorry. I'll ride with Flowers and Schweitzer and at guard and maybe even draft one in the first round this year if we don't go quarterback.
Well, if we've seen nothing else in the second half of this season, it's that the offensive line doesn't have to necessarily have a Pro Bowl player. We seem to have found
It
a
doesn't-
formula that works, right? We're plugging in guys and the system is working.
So I'm the one and only Curtis Samuel advocate on amongst the Washington fan
That's
base.
not true.
I don't know. Maybe it's not true, but he has to show something.
It sounds
He
like you've been
does.
kicking his ass, my friend, more than anything
And
else.
to this
honestly,
point,
I
it
think
has.
this would be a great week for it, right? I mean, he's playing in that second wide receiver position. You can almost bet that Diggs they're gonna assign him to McLaurin, right?
They have to unleash him, and I don't think it's Samuel that's the problem. I think the team has been like had him packed in egg crates. I think they
Maybe
need to
right.
let him go this week.
How about that formation that had him and Carter on either side of Heinicke in the shotgun?
I like
Isn't that the play that led to that screen
Set up
pass?
defense.
Yeah,
Oh
that
my
was
God.
awesome.
Yeah, they were going nuts on D. We will be seeing more formations like that.
The
All
pure
right, I think we're
speed
at
we
prediction
got-
time, guys.
Yeah, we're getting down to it. What do you got there, Paul?
This is an extremely tough one. They obviously have a lot of individual parts that we have to worry about and that you guys were talking about earlier that we have to be prepared for. You know, you got Prescott, Lamb, Cooper, the list goes on and on. On their side of the equation, I don't necessarily think they're looking at us and saying, oh my goodness, there's all these guys we need to prepare for. McLaurin, obviously, maybe Gibson, but beyond that, I think that they're going to feel pretty good about themselves in terms of their ability to stop us. But here's the thing. At this time of year, when you get to crunch time, you cannot underestimate the importance of team togetherness, if that's a word, team unity, and belief that players have in one another. You look at some of those clips of what is going on in the Washington locker room after these wins, and you can tell that this is a group that just wants to run through a wall for one another. And sometimes at this time of year, I think that goes a lot further than talent and ability does. Rivera has these guys finding a way. And, you know, when people want to count us out, he doubts, he puts the doubters, he silences the doubters and puts them to rest, it seems. So I want to believe in my heart of hearts that this unity that the team clearly has right now is going to continue. And I want to believe that we are going to continue to find a way. And I believe that we're going to continue to find a way. I'm going to say that we are going to win in an extremely tough fought, difficult game. And we're going to beat them by a point. 23
Oh my God, my heart can't take it, Paul. Oh, what's final score? You got a guess on that or just point?
Oh, yeah, I just threw out 23-22. It's going to be a 1-point game. And our defense is going to score a touchdown for us. I've been calling for it in chat every single week. It has to happen. What a perfect week for it to happen.
We are due for that.
So up until I listened to you guys for the last 20 minutes talk about Dallas, I was fully prepared to say we lose this game because it feels like a game we should lose. We're probably not. We probably don't have Dallas's talent. I hate to admit that, but I don't think we do. It's really tough, as I said before, to string together 4 wins, much less 5 wins. We play them again. You know, the narrative right now is if we go 3-2 over the next, 5 games, we're a playoff team. So we've kind of, I think there's a mental pass we can give ourselves. So we're going to play them again in 2 weeks. So if we don't win this one, we can beat them the next time. I think there's a lot of reasons why we could collapse a little bit or relax a little bit. But you guys kind of talked me off the ledge, and I think we're going to fall behind in this game because I just think Dallas, I think they're going to shock us early and they're going to get a long touchdown pass or they're going to have some kind of a breakout play to get ahead early, and we'll probably stumble some. And so I kind of expect us to go into the half at like 10 down. And then we're going to do what we've been doing, which is we're just going to keep grinding, and we're going to force them to make mistakes, and defense is going to make some plays, and we're going to tie them in the fourth quarter, and we're going to win it on a Brian Wilson field goal. I know it's not Brian Wilson, but wouldn't it be nice if it was? I think we're going to win 27-24 in overtime.
Oh my God.
Oh God, you guys are killing me with the. Oh, Bob.
So we talked a lot about the Dallas offense. We talked a little bit about specific people in the Dallas defense. As a defense, Dallas is currently giving up 111 yards per game. But I think they're only giving up 111 yards per game because other teams are having to get into a track meet with them.
Is that rushing? That's just rushing.
That's just rushing. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
giving up 111 rushing yards per game. And I think the only reason for that is because other teams are having to pass to try and keep up with the Dallas offense. So, keys here are keeping them off the field. And if we come out and play the same game that we've played for 4 weeks now, and we play it effectively, if we get McKissick back, but he practiced full practice today, right? Because he's not on the injury report. So, and I think not having McKissick this last week probably cost us a touchdown. I think McKissick's yards per game, he may not be the guy that scores, but I think his production is worth 7 points a game. I'm sorry, Derek. This is going to be a tight game. I don't care how we're either going to get embarrassed or it's going to be a tight win. Those are really the only two options here, I think, as I see it. And I don't know, call it 21-20 Washington. We get a touchdown where they get a pair of field goals. And the difference is McKissick.
I like it. I don't like it, but I like it.
I'm
I can't wait to hear Mark. I cannot wait to hear what Mark has to
Do you
say.
want to go first, Mark, or you want me to go? I usually
ahead.
say myself. I usually go last, but I don't want to.
You go, Derek.
Shake it up, brother. Go for it.
I'm going to shake it up because if there's one thing, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little negative here. If there's one thing this team has proven to me, it's that we can't have nice things. Okay. Like I'm sorry. This is the game that we need to win. And I'm not saying that this is going to end our season, but this just feels like the game that we just come out flat. You know what I mean? Like in years past, and I'm not going to say it's a new coach, it's new players, it's a new mentality, it's a new culture, it's a new GM, it's a new everything.
We're
But
beat up.
for 25 years. This is the game we don't show up to.
Yeah.
Game at home against a division rival when the playoffs are on the line, and we just don't show up. And then what happens? We win the Final Four to make it. You know, that's just what it is. I think we can hang on to. I think we can stand up. We have the ability to stand up to Dallas. I think we have the ability to beat them. It's just if we can do it.
What'd you say last week, Derek? I'm trying to recall back.
I have not picked us to win each of the last 4 games.
So I know which way you need to pick tonight, my friend.
And I'm going to follow suit because I can't within my mind of a Washington football fan. I've just been defeated. I just
I get it. We all get
in
it,
the
man.
pit of my stomach feel like we're going to lose this football game. Even if it doesn't make sense. We might dominate this game, and it's going to be a game. It's going to be 2 drives in the fourth quarter that is a 14-point swing that takes this game to 26-24 instead of 20. You know what I'm saying? We could have a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and we find a way to let this go just because we've done it that many times. And I have that devil's advocate in my head. I have that Murphy's Law in my mind. So I kind of have to stick to it because I felt the same way the last 3 weeks. I've been proven wrong. So I'll continue that trend. I think we fall to Dallas. I think it's 27-25, something funky, because that's just kind of been the way that it's been the last couple of weeks.
17-15.
Right.
Hey, so wait, before you go, Mark, I've got one caveat to what I said a minute ago.
Yep.
We've got 2 games against Dallas in the next 3 weeks. I think we split them.
That's a pretty solid prediction.
I don't think either team wins both games.
And that's what I'm talking. Like that would be so Redskins for us to lose at home and then beat them in Dallas.
True.
Maybe we beat them both. Maybe we beat them twice.
If we sweep the Cowboys and we go, because if we sweep the Cowboys, we end up winning record. There's
If
no
we
way
beat them, if we beat them on Sunday, we're beating them in Dallas. I'll go on record right now. If we beat them, I'm just
John's
saying,
having a waking wet dream right here.
I'm just saying, this team, man, they're just shutting us up. And if we beat them with where we are right now, if we beat them on Sunday,
we're
going to
get
get
confidence and momentum.
We're going to get into Dallas and kick their ass.
Sorry, Mark, you're up, Mark.
So unlike Derek, and Bob said this too, that either it's a close game or we get blown out. And I get that sentiment. What I have been convinced of over the last 4 weeks, and in fact, the whole year, is we don't win by large margins of victory. We win by 2, by 3, by 1. Our biggest margin of victory was the Tampa game, which is a little bit of an anomaly, right? We had that 77-minute drive to win the game at the end, but it's going to be a close game. It just, that's the way we play. Even if we're playing well, it's going to be a close game. We're not going to I doubt we're going to put 38 points on the board and have that kind of game. I think we're likely to score in the 20s, as are they. If I look at the stats, I mean, Dallas on paper, they've got their offense is way higher rated. They've got a quarterback who's right near the top of the league. We don't have that. I do think we have the intangibles in this game. I think we have all kinds of momentum. We sort of playing a little bit of house money. No one's expecting us to win. I saw on ESPN today, 9 out of the 10 predictors of the week all picked Dallas in this game, by 4 to 10 points or whatever. And I can't argue with them, right? That's the way it looks from the outside looking in. But the team's got some moxie. Paul talked about the locker room, and if you watch those videos in the locker room after the game, I'm ready to run through a wall too. I think this one comes down to, like most NFC East games do, and almost all Washington Dallas games seem to. There's a blowout either way, but they're rare. It's a few big plays here and there. It's the tipped pass. It's the controversial interference call. It's the fumble. Is it not a fumble? Games like that come down to playmakers, and that's where I'm going with this. I can't look at this one in my head and see that we've got the playmakers to hang with. If I have to put my good hard-earned money on this one, I would put it on the team that has the most playmakers, and that's Dallas. And that's not. I think any objective view of the two teams going down the roster, if you're looking for the skill players, your Micah Parsons, your Coopers, your CeeDee Lambs, they've got a bunch of guys. We don't have a bunch of guys. I look for that to be the difference. 1 or 2 plays, a guy like Micah comes in and tips a pass that gets intercepted and run back, that kind of thing. I think we put up a hell of a fight, but if I have to make a prediction, I'm calling Dallas in like a 23-20 kind of game.
I will follow my statement up by saying, if we beat them, even if we beat them handily, it would not shock me. Like, I wouldn't look at that game. If we were to run away with that game, I wouldn't look at it and say, I can't believe that just happened. I would say that because it would just be so exciting that I couldn't handle it.
Well, we did it last year, right? When we laid a 40 burger on them last year on national television. Yeah, and nobody saw that coming either. Yeah, it can happen. I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be pleasantly surprised. I mean, yeah, I don't expect us to win the game, but it wouldn't be shocking. We've earned the right to not be shocking when we beat a good team now.
We did that on national television last year against who was playing quarterback for Dallas that day? I don't even remember. Right? They were down to their third or fourth.
Was that the Ben DiNucci game? That might have been the Ben DiNucci game.
They were down to their third or fourth string quarterback at that point in time. That's not going to happen with Dak on the field, but For those of you that are curious, I went and looked the weather up. Should not be a factor over the weekend. They're calling
We
for
could have
52
thunderstorms.
and partly cloudy in Landover on Sunday. So like perfect football weather.
Well, over here about 45 miles west, they're saying potential thunderstorms and rain, so that could change quickly.
Well, they did say 21% chance of rain, but you know,
I think I'd be okay with an old NFC East cold, wet, and mud type of game.
Floppy.
Honestly, I was kind of hoping for some cold and windy weather, Mark. I was, any of you guys stay up Monday night and watch the watch
Yes,
the
sir.
Bills and the
You know
Bills and
what?
the Patriots?
I was a little depressed that the actual game didn't play out the way the pregame videos did, because oh my gosh, that was whiteout weather.
I mean,
Buffalo, man, two first and goals at the 5 in the last 5 minutes of the game, and they couldn't get a point. They should have won that game. I can't believe that Belichick won with his quarterback throwing 3 passes.
2 for 3 for what was it, 9 yards or
Yeah,
19
it's
yards?
like-
I don't know.
It's like, well, it's like welcome to 1950.
Hey, Mark, you know why I am all of a sudden very, very nervous about Sunday?
Oh no.
Talk to me.
The reason being that I try to listen very, very carefully when you guys make these predictions. And the fact of the matter is, every single Monday when I go back to this, I always say in my head, Mark was right. It usually plays out the way that you say it's going to. I think you're at about 90% here. So you got me very, very nervous right now.
I haven't gone back and looked. I'm never right on Pick'em, by the way. I will be picking us to lose on Pick'em. I've picked us to lose the last 4 weeks. That's intentional because I know if I pick us in Pick'em that if to lose, we're gonna win the games. Anyway, thank you for saying that. I think that's probably more generous than I deserve, but this one feels to me like one of those heartbreakers, typical Dallas Redskins games where they make a play.
So
Even if
we
you don't
have
expect-
beaten Dallas recently at home against Dak Prescott. In 2018, we beat them at home against Dak Prescott. So the whole Ben DiNucci thing, that pisses me off. We've beaten them with their, all-star
Oh, yeah.
quarterback at home in front of a big crowd before, and we can do it again.
And I'm ready to admit I was dead wrong and that this is a new day and that what we've seen the last 4 weeks is not a mirage and we can go toe to toe with anybody and win more than our share. I hope that's what's happening here. I need to see 5 more weeks. Have you heard that before?
I just like the idea of being above 500. Just above.
Same. It's pretty nice here and it's pretty nice to look around and not be like under the dirt.
I just like the idea of being above 500 in December. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's even bigger. It's one thing when you win the first couple of games of the season, you implode. The next 5 weeks are just going to be a dogfight.
So one of my questions is Dallas really the target? Because the Eagles might be the real
Really?
target. Because we probably aren't going to win the division. I mean, if everything goes in our little fantasy world the way we want it to go, yeah, great. But I think the wild card is the bigger, more likely target. Excuse me. Haven't done
Bless
that.
you. Bless
So
you. Get that man a drop.
I
button.
think the Eagles might be the target more than Dallas, but
The
I'd
Eagles,
still
the
like to see
Niners,
that.
the Vikings, right?
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know because if you so real quick, sorry not to make it even longer because we've already been at this thing for 90 minutes.
Ah, we're over it.
If you
We don't
look
care.
at Dallas's schedule, they play Washington, then they play the Giants, who, if I'm not, they beat the Giants pretty handily, right? Yeah, 44-20.
And Jones may or may not even be playing.
Yeah.
Then they play Washington. Then they play Arizona, who is arguably one of the best teams in the NFC, depending on who's their quarterback. Jeez, that screen's bright. Look at that. And then they play Philly. So if they stumble at all and find themselves at 2-3 over the next 5 games, and we go 3-2, I think. Does that put us tied and we have the tiebreaker? Is my math correct on that?
They're currently 2-0 in the division, 6-1 in the conference. We're 1-0 in the division and 5-2 in the conference.
So they've got a game on us.
Right.
the
So if they
conference.
go 2-3 and we go 3-2,
Then we're tied.
We'd have to beat them
Goes to
twice
whatever the
then,
next
right? To get the
tiebreaker down is.
tiebreaker.
and if we beat them twice, then the division is ours. And that's
Well,
3-2.
True.
But sweeping them is a tall task. But they could easily lose to Arizona. And then if you could find 2 losses between Washington, Philly, Washington, Giants.
So one thing I really love about this team is they clearly are not looking beyond this week. They
No,
clearly
that's
We are. They're not.
definitely. They're not even there. Like we're fans. That's what we're talking about. But they're like Dallas.
Did you guys hear John Allen's comments on Monday?
Uh-uh.
Jonathan Allen was asked at the podium on Monday about Taylor Heinicke.
I did hear that.
And his exact words were, he continues to show why he needs to be our guy going forward.
Wow.
John Allen, he doesn't say shit
Right.
other than we should win more than we don't. So just to piggyback onto the Taylor Heinicke conversation, and then over the next 5 weeks, if you've got a guy like Jonathan Allen, and Terry McLaurin continues to go to bat for him, if you have those guys support, you've got the other 51 guys in the locker room support.
Well, what do we think about Heinicke and his contract?
God, John, Mark, jeez.
All right, sorry.
All right, boys.
Call a flag on myself.
We're at
I will
10:04.
say
We
this,
hit
I will
90
say this
minutes.
to close. There's a lot of times we get to the end of this pod and I'm like, in my heart, or in my mind, put it that way, I'm like, I don't know if we can beat the Raiders. I don't know if we can beat the
But
Patriots.
we can beat Dallas.
But the team doesn't give a fuck what I think. They apparently think they can beat anybody. And that's what sways me is like, I mean, I literally I was 100% committed to, we're not going to beat Dallas in this game. But you know what? I'm not rooting against this team anymore.
Oh, I'm
So-
rooting for him. I just don't think it's just Redskins gonna Redskin. That's the
I will,
only thing
I will
say.
suffer with them on Sunday and with you guys. Good or bad, I will be there. All right, brothers.
Good night, gentlemen.
Dallas
It's been a
week.
pleasure.
Hey, wait, I want to say one more thing. Skins Orlando, you can suck it. We pod until we want to pod, baby.
No incessant bitching on
We're
this
an hour
episode.
and 35 minutes in and we love it.
And if you're still here listening, then it's your fault.
All right, gentlemen. Have a good one.
Hail.